power of stone raked top to bottom with claw marks geologists can't fully explain. A mountain shaped like a sleeping man and a warning, centuries old, never to wake him. A canyon wall of carvings the local elders swear they didn't make, that were already there when their ancestors first arrived. All the way up the spine of the Rocky Mountains, there are places like this, mapped, photographed, sitting on public land you could drive to this week, and the people who know that land best will tell you, plainly, never to go in. The question underneath all 15 isn't what happened here. It's what do they know that we don't? Number 1 still has no explanation anyone will put their name to. We count down from 15. Number 15. White Mountain, the birthing rock. We start in the Red Desert of southwestern Wyoming, north of Rock Springs, at a long wall of pale sandstone called White Mountain. Carved into that soft rock are hundreds of figures: bison, elk, hunters, horses, and a warrior holding what looks like a sword. A detail that tells archaeologists some of this art was made after Europeans arrived, while other panels are far, far older. But the figures people travel here for are the ones you won't see anywhere else in Wyoming. They are images of an animal drawn inside another animal, a shape within a shape. Carvers across the world made bison and deer and men. Almost nobody made this, and no one can tell you for certain what it was meant to say. Here is the prohibition. The Shoshone, the Arapaho, and the Ute all hold this place sacred, and they share a belief about what it was for. They say White Mountain was a birthing place, a site tied to the very beginning of life for the Plains and Great Basin peoples. The rock face, they ask, must never be touched, and running through the soft stone are deep hand-shaped grooves, worn into the rock by people pressing their palms to the same spot, over and over, for what may be 1,000 years. Think about that. A wall where, for 10 centuries, people came to mark the arrival of a new life by laying their hand against the stone, until the stone itself wore away into the shape of their hands. It is gentle and it is sacred, and there is something about standing in front of 1,000 years of human hands that does not feel gentle at all. Number 14. Legend Rock, where the power was bought. An hour or so away near Thermopolis stands one of the most important rock art sites in North America, and one of the oldest in continuous use anywhere on the continent. Legend Rock holds nearly 300 panels in the same haunting style as the Dinwoody carvings from our cold open. And the people who made them use this place, by the best evidence we have, for somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 years. Let that sink in. The same kind of carved figures, made and remade at the same cliff, by the same tradition, for 40 centuries. Empires have risen and fallen in less time than people came to this one rock. And they didn't come casually. This is the prohibition, and it's a strange one, because it wasn't a wall that kept people out. It was the danger of what waited inside. To approach Legend Rock the right way, a person fasted. They bathed in cold water, and then they sat in front of the carvings, alone, for days, without food, without sleep, waiting for a vision. What they were waiting for, the tradition says, was the water ghosts, the same beings from Dinwoody. If a seeker was brave enough and worthy enough, the ghosts would befriend them and grant them power to heal the sick, to succeed in war, to see what others couldn't. But the word the old accounts use again and again is worthy, because the power could be given, and the clear implication, never stated outright but always there, is that to the unworthy, it could be taken. Number 13. Sacred Ridge, the village that was drowned twice. This one I'm going to tell you straight with no embellishment. Because it doesn't need any. What happened at Sacred Ridge is real, it is documented, and it is worse than anything I could invent. In southwestern Colorado, in a basin near Durango, archaeologists excavating ahead of a dam project uncovered the remains of an ancient village. Inside 2 of the pit houses, they found human bone, almost 15,000 fragments of it. When they reconstructed what they could, the fragments belonged to around 35 people, about half the people who had lived in that village. The remains showed what had been done to them: beating of the feet, scalping, eye gouging. This was not a battle. It was something far more deliberate, carried out roughly 1,200 years ago, and then the village was abandoned to the silence. That is the documented strangeness. Here is the part that makes Sacred Ridge belong on a list about forbidden places. After the site was studied, it was deliberately flooded. The basin was filled to build a reservoir, and today Sacred Ridge lies underwater, beneath a lake called Lake Nighthorse, boats and swimmers passing over a place of unimaginable violence, most of them never knowing it's there. A village where 35 people were tortured and erased, and then, 12 centuries later, water was pulled over the whole thing like a lid. There is no legend here. The fact is the horror. Number 12. Badger 2 medicine, the land the spirits can abandon. On the eastern edge of Glacier National Park in Montana lies a stretch of country the Blackfeet call part of the backbone of the world. 130,000 acres of mountains and rivers and silence, named for the 2 waterways that run through it. To outsiders, it looks like spectacular wild land. To the Blackfeet, it is the place where their people were created. The mountains here are not just mountains. They are named for the figures in the origin story, and the spirits, they say, still live among them. For 40 years, this land was the center of one of the longest fights of its kind in American history. Oil and gas leases were issued across the Badger 2 medicine in the 1980s, and for 4 decades, the Blackfeet Nation fought to drive them off, and in the end, won. Today, motorized vehicles are banned. If you want to go in, you walk or you ride a horse. No engines, no machines. And the reason a tribal elder gave for that rule is the thing that stays with you. He explained that this land works only if you come into it the old way. Because, in his words, when you bring other things in, the noise, the engines, the modern world, the spirits move out. They withdraw. And the guidance the Blackfeet come here to receive goes silent. It is not a place you are forbidden to enter by a fence. It is a place where the very thing that makes it sacred will quietly pack up and leave the moment you arrive wrong. A holy site that can be emptied of its holiness by your own disrespect without anyone ever stopping you at the door. Number 11. Chief Mountain, the father that stands alone. Still in Blackfeet country, on the edge of Glacier, there is a mountain that doesn't behave like the others around it. Chief Mountain Ninaistako, the Father Mountain, rises as a great freestanding block of rock, sheared off and standing apart from the range behind it, as if it were set down on the plain by something other than geology. You can see it from a long way off. It does not look like it belongs to the landscape. It looks like it was placed. To the Blackfeet, this is one of the most sacred sites they have. It is a place of vision, quests, and prayer, and the tradition holds that here, on this mountain, the great holy being called the spirits of the universe together to decide what they would give to make human life worth living. This is where the meeting happened, they say. This is where it was decided that we would be here at all. And the prohibition is one you can see with your own eyes today if you go to the base of the mountain. Tied to the trees, you will find cloth, strips of fabric in many colors, left as offerings, not artifacts from some distant past. Living offerings, placed by people who still come here to pray, who still treat this rock as a doorway to something they don't expect you to understand. You are standing, when you stand there, in an active church with no walls and no roof, and the trees are full of other people's prayers. Number 10. Sleeping, Ute Mountain, the God who will rise. In the southwest corner of Colorado, there is a mountain that everyone who sees it describes the same way, because there's only one way to describe it. From the right angle, the ridgeline is unmistakably a man lying on his back. A head, folded arms across the chest, knees, feet, the long line of a body stretched across the sky. People have been looking at it and seeing the same figure for as long as anyone has lived in this country. The Ute know exactly who he is. He is a warrior god, a great figure from the beginning of things, and the story says he was wounded in a battle against evil ones and lay down here to rest. The changing colors on the mountain through the seasons are his blankets. The clouds that gather at the peak are the sign that he is shifting in his sleep, dreaming, deciding things. And this is the prohibition, the thing that makes a whole mountain something you treat with care. The Ute do not regard him as a story carved into stone. They regard him as present, as a living being who is merely sleeping. And the tradition carries a quiet, patient warning that runs underneath everything. One day, when his people need him most, he will wake up and rise. The menace isn't in anything he's done. It's in the waiting. You are looking at a sleeping god, and the only question is the timing. Number 9. The medicine wheel, the calendar. No one can read. Near the top of Medicine Mountain in the Bighorn Range of Wyoming, at nearly 10,000 feet, there is a wheel laid out in stone, 80 feet across, a central cairn with 28 spokes radiating out to a ring of stones around the edge. It has sat up there, exposed to the wind and the snow of one of the harshest spots in the state, for centuries, and possibly far longer. And here is the mystery that draws people up that mountain. No one knows who built it. No single tribe claims to have laid the stones. The wheel is older than the memories of the people who hold it sacred now. No one can say for certain what it was for. The spokes appear to line up with the rising sun at the summer solstice and with the rising points of certain bright stars. But whether that was the intent or what those alignments were meant to do is lost. It is a precise, deliberate instrument, built for a purpose, and the instruction manual is gone. The prohibition here is one of the clearest on the list because it's been formally negotiated. For generations, this has been sacred ground to many tribes: Crow, Cheyenne, Lakota, Arapaho, Shoshone, and more. And access to it is restricted. Days are set aside each year when the wheel is closed to the public entirely, reserved for ceremony, so that the people who hold it sacred can use it without strangers watching. A wheel of stone that has kept a secret at 10,000 feet for 1,000 years and is still, on the appointed days, closed to your eyes. Number 8. Jenny Lake, the ceremony that went quiet. In Grand Teton National Park, beneath the most savage, sheer wall of mountains in the lower 48, sits a deep, cold, glacier-carved lake. Today, it is one of the most photographed places in America. Boats, hikers, a steady summer river of tourists, Jenny Lake, and almost none of the people who circle it know what it used to be. This was sacred ground to the Shoshone. The flat land near the water was a place where the sun dance was traditionally held, one of the most important ceremonies these people had, a days-long act of sacrifice and prayer and renewal carried out in the shadow of those terrible peaks. Generations came here for it. The Tetons are not a pretty backdrop in that tradition. They are part of the ceremony. The mountains are watching. And the prohibition here is the saddest kind, not a rule someone enforces, but a silence that fell. As the land became a park, as the crowds arrived, the ceremony receded. It moved, or it stopped, or it went quiet. What's left is a sacred place hiding in plain sight, doing its sacred work for no one, while thousands of people eat their lunch on its shore and never feel the absence. Some places are forbidden because something terrible happened there. This one carries the weight of something that simply isn't allowed to happen anymore. Number 7. Manitou Springs, the breath of the Great Spirit. At the foot of Pikes Peak in Colorado, there is a town built on top of bubbling mineral springs. The water comes up naturally carbonated, fizzing out of the ground, and for as long as people have lived in the shadow of that mountain, those springs have been treated as something more than water. The very name says it. Manitou, the Great Spirit, the breath of the divine coming up out of the earth. To the Ute, the Cheyenne, and the Arapaho, this was holy ground, and it held a particular kind of power. It was neutral, a place of truce. Tradition holds that warring peoples could come to these springs in peace because the water belonged to the spirit and not to any tribe, and to spill blood here was unthinkable. People left offerings to the spirit they believed breathed through the bubbles, rising in the pools. Now, I'll be honest with you, because this list is built on being honest with you. Manitou Springs is the gentlest entry here. There's no horror in it, no torture, no warning to stay away. Today, it's a wellness town, and the springs are open to everyone. But I include it because it makes a point the scarier sites can't. Forbidden didn't always mean dangerous. Sometimes the most sacred ground was the one place violence was forbidden, a place so holy that the rule wasn't stay out. The rule was, you cannot bring your war here. Number 6. Inyan Kara, the Mountain of Mothers. I'm going to be upfront about geography on this one, because somebody in the comments will be, and I'd rather it come from me. Inyan Kara sits on the western edge of the Black Hills of Wyoming, right on the seam where the Rockies hand off to the Black Hills, borderline. But it earns its place, so let me tell you why. Inyan Kara is a strange peak. It's a ring, an eroded volcanic core that forms a near-perfect natural amphitheater, a wall of rock encircling an inner summit, as if the mountain were built to hold something in the center of it. From the right vantage, it doesn't look like a mountain that happened. It looks like a mountain that was designed. And the prohibition is tied to the most protected thing any people have. To the Lakota, Inyan Kara is sacred ground, bound up with mothers and with childbirth, a place connected to the bringing of new life into the world and guarded with the care that such a thing demands. This is not a peak you scramble up for the view. It is, in the oldest understanding of it, a place where life begins, set apart and watched over. A ring of stone around a sacred center, holding the very start of things. Number 5. Castle Gardens, the warning. We can't translate. Out on the high plains of central Wyoming, the wind has carved white sandstone into shapes like the towers and turrets of a castle. And into those soft white walls, people carved something extraordinary. Castle Gardens hold some of the oldest shield-bearing warrior figures of their kind found anywhere in North America. Great round shields, each one decorated with its own design, carried by figures that have stood guard on this rock for an immense span of time. There's a particular dread that comes with this site, and it isn't the dread of violence or ghosts. It's the dread of a message you know is important and cannot read. These shields were not decoration. The designs meant something. They marked or warned or recorded or protected. Each one was specific. Each one carried weight to the person who made it. And that meaning is, for the most part, simply gone. we are looking at a deliberate communication from people who are no longer here to explain it, and the part of your brain that hunts for meaning keeps reaching for it and closing on nothing. The prohibition is one of fragility and restriction. The art is delicate, protected, and culturally sensitive, and some of it has already been lost to vandalism and theft over the years, which is its own quiet horror. Pieces of a message we can't read being chipped away before we ever decode them. A wall of warriors holding up signs in a language that died with them. Number 4. Crowheart Butte, where outsiders may not climb. Rising out of the Wind River country of Wyoming is a flat-topped butte you can see from miles in every direction. Its name is Crowheart, and the name is not gentle. It comes from a documented event in 1866, when the Shoshone and Bannock fought the Crow over the hunting rights to this rich country. The Shoshone chief, Washakie, won, and according to the history, he took the heart of the Crow chief and raised it on his lance. The butte has carried the name of that act ever since. That's the documented strangeness, a real battle, a real and brutal trophy, a landmark named for it that appears on modern maps, without most travelers ever knowing what it means. But the prohibition is the reason it's on this list, and it is one of the firmest you'll find. Crowheart Butte is a sacred site, used to this day by young native men for vision quests, the same ritual of fasting and solitude and waiting we've seen at the rock art sites. And to protect that, there is a rule, and it is not a suggestion. Non-native people are forbidden from climbing the butte. You may look, you may not ascend, because guardian spirits the tradition holds reside on top, and the summit belongs to them, and to the young men who go up there to meet them, and to no one else. A flat-topped mountain in plain sight of the highway that an entire category of people is simply not permitted to climb. Number 3. Bear Lodge, the grandfather. They climb. You have seen this place, even if you've never been to Wyoming. It rises out of the Black Hills country like nothing else on the continent, a sheer-sided tower of rock nearly 900 feet tall, with a flat top and great vertical grooves running its entire height, top to bottom, like the rock had been raked by something enormous. Most of the world calls it Devil's Tower. But that name is a mistranslation, and the older name tells you what it actually is. The tribes call it Bear Lodge because of the grooves. The story, shared across the Lakota, the Cheyenne, the Kiowa, the Arapaho, and more, says that a group of children were being chased by an enormous bear, and they climbed onto a low rock and prayed for it to save them. The rock rose into the sky, lifting them out of reach, and the bear, leaping and clawing at the sides, trying to reach them, left those grooves raked down the stone. The children, in many tellings, became the stars of the Pleiades. The claw marks are right there. You can count them. And here is the prohibition, and it's a real one with real friction behind it. To the Lakota, this rock is a grandfather, a living elder of stone. As one runner put it, climbing it is like climbing one of their grandfathers. You wouldn't climb a cathedral, and you wouldn't climb this. Every June, there is a voluntary closure asking climbers to stay off the tower so that ceremonies can be held in peace. Some honor it, some don't. And so you have this extraordinary standoff playing out in the present day, a sacred grandfather of the Plains peoples, with ropes and climbers inching up his back in the 1 month he's meant to be left alone. Number 2. Dinwoody Canyon, the water ghost. We come back to where we started, because now you're ready for it. Dinwoody Canyon in the Wind River country of Wyoming holds what may be the strangest body of rock art in North America. The figures here are like nothing in the ordinary catalogue of carved bison and hunters. They are tall, intricate, deeply patterned beings, human-shaped but wrong. Bodies merged with birds, hands with too many fingers, faces that aren't faces. Archaeologists call it the Dinwoody tradition, and they freely admit it depicts a whole spiritual world we only half understand. And the elders of the Shoshone and Arapaho say the carvings were already on the cliffs when their ancestors arrived, older than memory, made by someone else. Here is the prohibition, in full now. These figures are the water ghosts, Pa-Wape in the old language, spirit beings who live in the watery places, the rivers and the lakes and the hot springs. And there is one in particular whose story you should carry out of this canyon with you. She is female, and the carving shows it. If you look closely beneath her eyes, there are lines that may be streaks of tears, because she was known to weep and to wail, and the weeping was a lure. The story says she cried to draw men toward the water, to come closer, to comfort her, to know her better. And the men who went to her did not come back the same, if they came back at all. That is why you do not go alone to the water at Dinwoody. Not because a sign says so, because for longer than anyone can trace, the people of this canyon have understood that something in the water is patient and lonely and listening for footsteps. The carvings record it, the elders confirm it, and the canyon, to this day, keeps its own counsel. Number 1. Torrey Lake and the Little People. Not far from Dinwoody, scattered among the boulders and cliff faces in the foothills of the Wind River Mountains, lies the Torrey Lake site, a sister to the canyon we just left, covered in the same uncanny Dinwoody figures, the same half-men, half-beasts staring out of the patinated stone. By every measure, this is one of Wyoming's archaeological crown jewels, and it is, in a sense, the least protected place on this entire list. No gate, no ranger, no dune closure, no law that singles it out. And yet, it may be the most genuinely forbidden of them all, because the prohibition at Torrey Lake isn't written by any government. It's older than that, and it belongs to the stewards of the place, the ones the local tradition says have guarded these sites since long before the Shoshone, since long before anyone. The little people, the Nimerigar, small beings said to live in and around the rocks, who were the keepers of the rock art, who guided the vision seekers into the stone to meet the strange creatures carved there, and who did not take kindly to disrespect. They were said to carry tiny bows and to shoot poisoned arrows at those who crossed them. Now here is the part that gets me, and I want to be careful how I tell it, because this is a story a modern person tells about himself, not a legend from the deep past. An archaeologist who visited Torrey Lake, a professional on an official tour, fell ill not long after, struck down by a tick-borne fever that put him on his back for days. And as he lay there burning, he found himself wondering, half seriously, and then maybe not so half seriously, whether he had paid the little people their due, whether his visit had been too profane for that sacred ground, whether the Nimerigar's poisoned arrows had found him after all, delivered into his body by the bite of an infected tick. He knows how it sounds. He said it anyway. And that's the thing about Torrey Lake. It doesn't need a fence to keep you out, because the people who know it carry the rule inside them. You enter on the little people's terms, or you don't enter at all. There is no sign telling you which you've chosen. You only find out afterward. And that is number 1. The most forbidden place on this list is the one with nothing physical stopping you at all. So, that's the list. 15 places strung up the spine of the Rocky Mountains, from a wall of worn handprints in the Red Desert to a quiet lake where the little people are said to keep their own kind of law. And here's what I keep coming back to, the thing that threads all 15 together. Every single one of these places is real. They are mapped, they are photographed. Most of them sit on public land you could legally reach by the end of the week. There's no fog of myth hiding them. You can pull most of them up on a satellite map right now. And that's exactly what makes the line in the dirt so strange. These aren't lost places. They're known places, sitting right out in the open, that the people who understand them best will tell you plainly not to enter. If you put a knife to my back and made me pick one, I would not walk into alone. It wouldn't be the tower or the sleeping god. It would be Sacred Ridge, the drowned village, not because of a ghost, but because of what's documented there, sealed under a lake people swim in without knowing. The horror that needs no legend is always the worst kind, but the one that stays with me when the lights are off is Dinwoody, a wall of figures that the people who live beside it swear they did not carve, already there when they arrived, already watching, made by hands that were gone before the oldest story began. So let me ask you two things, and I read every reply. First, of these 15, which is the one you would genuinely refuse to enter? And second, because I know some of you live out there in this country, what sacred place near you did I miss? Tell me. There's always another list. Until then, be respectful of the ground you walk on. You never really know whose it is.